Welcome to ZoomInData. Hello everyone. Thank you for joining the 20-second video in our extended Azure Logic Apps series. In this session, titled Custom Connector Masterclass, From Design to Production, we will cover when and why to create custom connectors, instead of using HTTP actions or managed connectors, step-by-step creation process, from OpenAPI, Swagger definition to testing and security setup. Advanced techniques, authentication flows, pagination, batching, triggers, and throttling handling. Deployment, sharing, governance, and production best practices, 2026 edition. Custom connectors unlock integration with any REST, SOAP API, making Logic Apps truly universal. If you find this content valuable, please subscribe to ZoomInData and enable notifications to stay updated. Let us begin. When should you create a custom connector instead of using HTTP actions? When the API has complex authentication, OAuth 2.0 with scopes, client credentials, JWT. When you need reusable triggers and actions across multiple workflows, HTTP actions are one-off. When the API supports pagination, batching, or long-running operations that need proper handling. When you want a polished, searchable connector experience in the designer gallery. What are the main methods to define a custom connector? OpenAPI, Swagger. Recommended, upload OpenAPI 2.0 or 3.0 JSON, YAML file, automatic action, trigger generation. Manual creation, define host, base URL, authentication, actions, and triggers step by step in the portal. From existing HTTP action, export an HTTP action configuration as a starting template. Step by step, how to create a basic custom connector from OpenAPI. In Azure Portal, Logic Apps, Custom Connectors, New Custom Connector, import from OpenAPI file, upload OpenAPI JSON, YAML. Review auto-detected host, base path, schemes, HTTP, HTTPS. Define authentication, NoAuth, API key, OAuth 2.0, basic. Review generated actions, triggers. Customize titles, descriptions, visibility, important, advanced. Test connector, create connection. Save. How do you configure secure authentication in custom connectors? API key, header or query parameter, store key securely in connection settings. OAuth 2.0, supported flows, authorization code, client credentials, implicit. Provide token URL, authorize URL, client ID, secret, stored in connection, not definition. Define scopes for least privilege access. Basic, username, password stored in connection. Managed identity, 2026 enhancement. Use for Azure AD protected APIs without secrets. How do you add pagination support to custom connector actions? In action definition, right pointing arrow, add pagination parameters. Next link, header, link, total count, value array path. Logic Apps automatically loops until no next link or all items retrieved. Common patterns, $skip, $top, offset, limit, cursor based, or next link in response header, body. How do you create triggers in custom connectors? Define polling trigger, set interval, state, timestamp, ID, and condition to detect new items. Webhook trigger. Define subscribe, unsubscribe URLs. Logic Apps calls them on enable, disable. Best practice. Use webhook whenever possible for real-time, low-cost triggers. What are advanced features you can add to custom connectors? Throttling policy. Define rate limit, e.g., 100 calls per minute, to prevent provider bans. Retry policy. Built-in or custom, exponential backoff. Batching. Group multiple items into one call. Requires API support. Dynamic values. Use lookups from other actions. Example. List drop-downs from API call. Summary and description. Rich text for better discoverability in gallery. How do you test a custom connector before production use? In Custom Connector Blade, Test tab. Create new connection. Run each action. Trigger with sample data. Validate inputs, outputs, authentication flow, pagination, error handling. Use run history in a test workflow to see real execution behavior. How do you share custom connectors across teams or tenants? Export connector definition as Open API JSON. Share file or publish to Azure Marketplace, private. Use Azure Resource Manager, ARM, templates to deploy connector plus connection. For multi-tenant, share connection via Azure AD App registration and consent. What security best practices apply to custom connectors? Never hardcode secrets in definition. Always use connection-level auth. Prefer OAuth 2.0 client credentials or managed identity over basic API key. Limit scopes to minimum required. Use private endpoints and VNet integration, standard, to secure API calls. How do you handle versioning of custom connectors? Create new connector version when API changes. Example, v2. Update workflows to new version gradually. Keep old version for backward compatibility during transition. Use Git plus C, CD to manage open API definitions. What are common pitfalls when building custom connectors? Poor action descriptions. Hard to find in gallery. Incorrect pagination config. Infinite loops or missing data. Weak auth. Security risk or connection failures. No throttling. API provider blocks your IP. How do you migrate from HTTP actions to custom connectors? Export HTTP action. Use as template for custom connector. Add proper auth, pagination, and summaries. Replace HTTP actions in existing workflows with new connector actions. Test side by side before full replacement. How do custom connectors integrate with AI and MCP servers? Define actions as tools that AI agents can call, function calling. Publish connector as MCP server, 2026 feature. Make API discoverable to Azure OpenAI agents. Use Azure API Center for governance of MCP-enabled connectors. What performance considerations apply to custom connectors? Minimize latency. Use HTTPS. Keep base path short. Avoid unnecessary redirects. Implement client-side throttling to respect provider limits. Prefer built-in connectors when available. Faster, no proxy overhead. How do you monitor and troubleshoot custom connector usage? Connector actions appear in run history with inputs, outputs, errors. Use Azure Monitor metrics, connector call count, failures, latency. Log custom events for detailed diagnostics. What licensing and cost implications do custom connectors have? No additional cost beyond Logic Apps execution, consumption, standard. Connector calls count as standard managed connector executions. Premium features, example, OAuth, are included. How do you deploy custom connectors via CI/CD? Export connector definition as OpenAPI JSON. Use ARM bicep template to deploy connector resource. Deploy connection separately, manual or scripted, due to credentials. What are real-world examples of custom connectors in production? Internal legacy REST API for employee data. Third-party SaaS without managed connector. Example, custom CRM. Proprietary hardware API, IoT device management. On-premises SOAP service wrapped in REST proxy. Why is custom connector expertise valuable in interviews? Interviewers ask, how would you integrate a custom API that requires OAuth 2.0 and pagination? Shows ability to extend Logic Apps beyond managed connectors. Demonstrates understanding of API design, security, and reusability. What final advice would you give for mastering custom connectors? Always start with OpenAPI if available. It saves 80% of the work. Test every action, trigger thoroughly before sharing. Document authentication and pagination clearly. Keep connectors small and focused, one per API service. Thank you for watching this custom connector masterclass, from design to production in Azure Logic Apps. If you found this video helpful, please like, share, and subscribe to ZoomInData. More advanced Azure Logic Apps content is coming soon. Stay connected and keep learning. See you in the next video.